This video is sponsored by Gamersubs. Get 10% off your entire order and support my channel in the process simply by going to gamersubs.gg/Cliff or using code Cliff at checkout. Blowhole blast for the win. Allow me to introduce you to the Cannon of Rage, Sea of Thieves' first and only deployable cannon to date, allowing you to not only fortify a landmass of your choice, but also create new opportunities on your own vessel. That's right, pirates, not only can you turn your sloop into a mini galleon, front and back cannons are now a reality. This addition is undoubtedly going to change Sea of Thieves forever. Naturally, this is a toy I desperately wanted to get my hands on, but it isn't actually the only new thing they added to the game. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Season 16. Reaper's Rules. A celebration of all things Reaper's Bones, this update introduced a first of its kind, a Reaper Voyage. New content, new tools, and of course, new treasure. Needless to say that I wanted to get my hands on all three of these things. Starting my day off observing myriad other ships fighting to do the same, I plopped on the search for ancient secrets right before raising my own Reaper emissary flag. I'm really not kidding when I say that everyone and their parrot was wrapping the Reaper's flag for this season launch, but I was hoping that with all of them occupying each other, I'd be able to sneakily get this voyage done. Until I realized... Wait, what? I didn't do that. Huh? The Reaper's mark is raised during the Reaper's Bones Voyages? Oh, I'm so screwed. While on the new voyage, the game will automatically fly the PvP flag on your ship, so even if you are not running a Reaper emissary flag, everyone will be able to spot you on the map. This created a huge incentive for me to want to wrap this up ASAP to get rid of that marker, marveling upon the new dark mode voyage paper before digging up a chest of bones. What at a first glance might appear to be a Reaper's chest without a tan is actually a spawner for your own skeleton crew. I was now in command of these bony brothers, and dare I say, they are more competent than your average open crew, because not only did they find the dig spot on the next part of the quest, they also dug up additional treasure on the side, and that without me even giving them any commands. They were so competent, in fact, that I decided to let them fight it out with the spooky Athena ghost whilst I went about securing the loot. I was a little concerned that this might be too much to handle for them, but gang had absolutely no trouble sending those dudes back to the Sea of the Damned. Though as it turned out, there's more to this voyage than just spawn camming phantoms, because if I don't turn this wheel, they are never going to stop spawning. Our crew, meanwhile, had taken no casualties, because even though one of my skellies did go down, I could just pick them back up. Man, that is such a good feature. Now, I did have to repeat this 2 more times because, well, of course I do. This wouldn't be Sea of Thieves content if I didn't need to do a thing 3 times over. But rather than finding the next dig spot, I actually found another skeleton. Yeah, so you can find these on pretty much any island in the game, and if you pick them up, they'll help you complete entirely unrelated voyages as well without being tied to the Reaper's Bones. That's right, you can literally show them your quest and they will attempt to help you complete it. Though in my case, this was a problem even they couldn't fix. What do you mean? Even my skeletons don't know. It doesn't exist. Oh, it literally has descriptions. Yeah, turns out they cannot do the reading for you, though they do start digging automatically once you are within range of the spot. Okay, I'm not gonna bore you with the details of doing the same thing 3 times over, especially because it took me an embarrassingly long time to find all the dig spots. But rest assured knowing that the rest of the server was having a lot more fun than I was, though I did find ways of entertaining myself. Oh, chat, are you ready for this? Arise. Cinema. Enemy of the year, by the way. So once we were done completing the Rule of 3, we were very subtly led to a specific point on the island. At this stage, the phantoms got even more aggressive as we began digging up more and more brand new, unique pieces of loot. But the most imposing of all was what's waiting for us inside this casket, because what I found was a skull of the banished. Incidentally, picking this up also banished my skeleton crew to the Shadow Realm, because as soon as the voyage was done, they disappeared. The only ones I was left with were the 2 I dug up on the island itself, but all the boys from the chest of bones were not intent on helping me carry the stuff to my ship. Not that it mattered, because I was not destined to get to keep that treasure. Not only did most of the other Reapers on the server decide to move their fight towards the hideout, yet another one was beelining it straight towards me to make sure I don't even make it that far. Because even though I landed first blood, even though I got a 1 ball, and even though they somehow managed to get Krakened when I didn't, there's 2 golden skeletons on their boat. Yeah, I'll give you a second to guess how this 2v1 against people with over 1,000 levels in the PvP faction ended up, because spoiler, not in my favor. I'm trying so hard not to sound salty about it, but rest assured knowing that I was very salty about it. Now, there are 2 things that could have helped me win this fight. 3 things, actually. The game functioning being one, because sword combat does not work as intended right now. Anyway, a Cannon of Rage would have been very useful in that situation, because I could have used it as a rare cannon to buy myself some time in order to sell the skull. But also, a teammate. And what better way to fight sweaty gold curse gamers than getting a gold curse gamer myself? Welcome back, Mifu.
Hello. My name Mifu.
Come on, guys, I'm sure you saw this coming. I have neither the skill nor the inclination to compete in a PvP season all by myself. Now, obviously, this content was just as new to him as it was to me. We were playing one day post-launch after all, so naturally, our first course of action was getting our hands on yet another Skull of the Banished. Now that Mifu was all caught up on the Voyage, our plan was to try and find a Cannon of Rage. However, we saw another boat that also carried a Skull of the Banished, and I mean, could you resist that temptation? Oh yeah, did I forget to mention that the skull itself is marked like a Reaper's bounty? This truly is the PvEVP experience that Sea of Thieves is known for. Now, as you can imagine, combat suddenly became a lot easier. Just having another person on your crew, even while they suffer from high ping, made a huge difference. And obviously, it wouldn't hurt that said crew member was so insanely good at the game that he manages to make you shine as well. All of that is to say that we won that fight. However, they did decide to come back. Okay, they're almost... Dude, they got Krakened! That's really funny, isn't it? Doesn't it look like Karen is really trying to throw me a bone here today? Yeah, it would if that stupid squid attacked that crew instead of me! But even though it was frustrating to watch these guys just sail out of the encounter, we were not worried. I mean, we beat them once before, who says we can't do it again? Except winning was not the only problem. There was an active FOTD of the Damned on our server that we desperately wanted to get our hands on because before we could even reach it, these guys kept coming back. You see, there are very few places in the game that guarantee to drop a Cannon of Rage, but the Fort of the Damned is one such place. So obviously, we wanted nothing more but to get rid of that sloop so we could steal the cannon. And the loot as well, I guess. But by the time we had finally demoralized them enough to stop chasing us, a brigantine had already loaded all the treasure and began running away. Thankfully for us, they had the brilliant idea of trying to run us into a phantom fleet, which honestly is a pretty decent running strategy if you are the small boat trying to get away from the big boat. But what these guys didn't realize was that their vessel offered a lot more surface area to get absolutely dunked on by the event. But unfortunately for them, it got so much worse than that. What the? What just... Oh, their cannon blew up!
That's so funny.
Mifu, this is our chance! Yeah, the Cannon of Rage, and they have a skelly ship spot on them!
Wait, how come they had a Cannon of Rage, but they didn't use it on us?
That, my friends, is a good question. Some of you might have noticed that, the server is turning off in a few minutes. That's because there was a bug with the Cannon of Rage that rendered it unusable as soon as you deployed it. Explaining why they didn't use it against us, and also why we were not going to be given enough time to actually sell the treasure that we just collected. Obviously, that was a bit of a bummer, but if we can trade some server downtime for actually functioning cannons, I'm all for it. So ladies and gentlemen, strap in because we're about to go hunting for a Cannon of Rage. Now, as much as there are places that can guarantee a Cannon of Rage, do remember that this was day 2 of the new season, so we were not aware just yet what these places are. What we did know was that you could find them randomly spawning on any beach, so we opted to try that out first before going nuclear and starting a Fort of the Damned. And while it did take us a while to stumble upon it, we finally found one very fittingly at a skeleton camp. Obviously, Mifu's first instinct when getting his hands on it was trying to break the game. We carried it all across our vessel to see if we could find some funny, unintended spots to deploy it at, but it seemed like Rare did do a pretty good job of locking it down. Naturally, there were still some pretty useful spots you could place it at, but it was obvious that the devs tried to make sure it was not too overpowered. But now that we had a cannon, we also needed a target. People were yet to wake up to the fact that the servers were back online, so the seas were rather quiet for now. To kill 2 birds with 1 stone, the 2 of us decided to take on a Fort of Fortune, not only to attract attention, but also to find out if you can find another Cannon of Rage in its vault. Cue the usual PvE shenanigans until we got run up on by a galleon. Listen, I know we wanted the attention, but not their attention. Being the absolute PvP nut that he is, Mifu proposed to just fight that galleon outright. Needless to say that I was not a big fan of that idea. We managed to get them off our tail for now, and I made the executive decision to try and look for allies. In that process, we came across this sloop that first seemed to want to fight us, but as soon as we fought back, began changing their tune. I was on the fence on what to do with these guys, but let's just say that karma has a way of collecting its debt. What the? What is happening to your boat? What the hell? What? You guys okay? Yo, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, I don't know what's up with these emergent encounters today. Now, we did decide to let these guys go for now. And when I say we, I really just mean myself because I had to drag Mifu kicking and screaming to come to that conclusion. But basically, the galleon had left the server and I figured that sloop had learned their lesson. So we went back to complete our Fort of Fortune. And this is where we came to realize that the real enemy was on our boat all along.
No. Can you revive me? I have a ray gun.
My cannon. Screw everything else, I just want the cannon.
Well, what about the chest of fortune?
I guess we can take that. It was me from the very beginning. Now the good news is that we finally had 2 cannons. The bad news is that our server was completely dead. And since the cannons do count as treasure, we could not just server hop to find people to test them on because we would lose them in the process. 8 hours deep into a session, I was going to take what I can get. I was even happy about spotting a brigantine, at least until...
They are parked.
Wait, what? Why are they parked?
They're at a shrine.
Oh my god, they got Kraken sails and the ship is not even captained. Sails down, anchor down, early game cosmetics, and no captaincy. If you were looking for brand new players, look no further. Unfortunately for these swabbies, we were extremely desperate. We decided to place our cannons at the front of the ship as to be able to give them a warm welcome once they come back. Though that didn't happen for a very, very, very long time. Turns out that they decided to swim the treasure back up manually rather than using a mermaid. But that mattered not, for it was finally showtime.
I have a line of shot.
Do it.
Cliff,
What's up?
stop shooting him.
Oh, Jesus. Uh-oh. What the? Okay, I was not expecting that to go like this. Not our finest work, I have to admit. I believe what happened here is that Mifu's cannon hit the capstan and the splash damage from that ignited both of our cannons, causing them to explode way sooner than they should have under regular circumstances. Obviously, that was very frustrating. We put a lot of effort into getting these cannons, and we probably just made that poor swabby uninstall the game with nothing to show for it. At that point, we were almost ready to give up on our cannon experiments. I mean, at least now we were free to server hop to find one that's actually populated, and maybe getting into a good fight or two is going to lift our spirits again. We got stuck in between a brigantine and a sloop fighting at Reaper's hideout, and it was just a regular free-for-all until we realized the brigantine had cannons of rage. Not just 1, but 2! Speak of motivation. Mifu just deleted the sloop, and now it was my time to do the same to the brig. Got 1. Got 2.
W.
Last one's panicking. Third one dead. These cannons are ours, baby! Let's go! The game was really throwing us a bone with that one. We lost our cannons by sinking 1 brigantine, and now we got them back by sinking another. The only thing left to do is finally use them. Like, properly. The question was, on whom? Well, we did find a sloop taking on a Foth. Honestly, we could have sank that kid with a banana if we wanted to, and I think we did enough seal clubbing for a day, so we decided to spare him at the cost of the fort's chest of fortune and cannon of rage. There was also a galleon, but sadly for us, it was completely abandoned at an outpost, leaving us with this sloop at Reaper's hideout. At long last, we got to try out the legendary front cannon, and tell you what, it aims really high. I was struggling with hitting anything other than the mast, and upon closer inspection, I could confirm that there was only 1 upper deck hole. Obviously, I had wisened up to the fact that nobody was on this vessel, leading to me looking for the owner, because even if we're not able to get a proper fight out of him, there was still one thing we wanted to try. So after helping him repair his ship, I convinced him to come over to ours, where Mifu was already waiting.
Okay, now what? Ah, okay.
Oh my god. It was literally like, now what? After a session lasting over 11 hours, this was the extent of the damage we could do with the Cannon of Rage. Don't get me wrong, it's a really fun item to mess around with, and I'm certain that as time passes, people will find incredibly creative ways of using it. But for today, we decide to hand them over to this fella so he can have some fun with them as well. As for me, there are still more things I want to do with this item, but that is going to have to wait until next time. But if you don't want to wait that long, what about you check out my last episode where Birdie, Brandon, and I decide to go on a hunt for an ancient megalodon. Let's just say that this creature is just as explosive as the Cannon of Rage, and you can find the card on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. I hope you guys have a day filled with the riches on the sea. And until next time, peace.